You don't think of yourself as a cruel man. You have a wife, 2 children, a small house near the tanner's quarter where the smell never really leaves, but you've stopped noticing it. You go to church on Sundays. You give confession. You know the names of your neighbors. When the miller's boy broke his arm last winter, you helped carry him home. You are not a monster. You want to be clear about that. You've never wanted to be a monster. But there is a door at the bottom of the castle stairs, and behind that door is a room that belongs to you. And the things that happen in that room happen because you make them happen, because you are trained to make them happen, because the law requires it, the church sanctions it, and the magistrate commands it. This is the kind of story most people never think about. If you're wondering how a reasonable man ends up holding the instruments, stick around, because the answer isn't what you think it is. And Nick Pov goes into these places that history usually looks away from. The year is 1347. You are 23 years old and you have just been offered a job. It came through your uncle who knew a man who served the city magistrate's office. The position was called Frager, a word that in your dialect means something close to questioner. The formal title is Scharfrichter in the German territories, Carnifex in the church records. Executioner and torturer both fall under the same office. The city pays you a salary of 6 silver pfennigs a week, plus a small fee for each examination, which is the official word for what happens in the room below the castle. You also receive a house. Not the tanner's quarter anymore, but a real house with a stone floor and a garden behind it. You hesitate for 3 days. Your father was a dyer, your older brother apprenticed to a cooper. The options for a third son with no trade and no inheritance are narrower than people like to admit. You can join a monastery, but you don't feel the calling. You can try to find a position as a soldier, but the wars are far away and you have no horse and no armor and no real training with a blade. You can stay in the tanner's quarter and hope something turns up. Or you can take the job. You ask the priest. He thinks for a long moment and then tells you that the questioner serves the cause of justice, that the truth must be extracted from those who conceal it, that God himself sanctioned the use of pain in the uncovering of sin. He cites scripture. He uses the word necessity. He does not say it is a good job, but he says it is a lawful one. That is enough. You take it. The first thing you learn is that there is a procedure. This is important. There is a document the magistrate signs before anyone enters the examination room. There is a physician who attends to make sure the subject does not die before the examination is complete. There is a scribe who records everything that is said, every question, every answer, every admission. Nothing happens without the document. Nothing happens without the signature. You are not acting alone. You are never acting alone. You are the instrument of a process that has been carefully designed by people far more educated than you. This is the first thing that makes it bearable. The second thing you learn is the gradient. There is a formal legal hierarchy of methods codified in statute, ranked from least severe to most severe, and you are required to proceed in order. You begin with a strappato. The subject's arms are bound behind their back. They are lifted by a rope attached to their wrists, then dropped, the sudden halt jerking the shoulder joints. It is painful. It is designed to be painful, but it leaves no permanent mark, and the law requires you to start there. If that produces no confession, you proceed. The rack, the thumbscrew, the boot. An iron device that compresses the leg. Each step requires the magistrate's approval. Each step is recorded. Each step is sanctioned. The first time you perform an examination, the subject is a man accused of poisoning his landlord's cattle. He is 40, heavy-set with a farmer's hands. He cries almost immediately. He confesses within the first application. The examination takes less than 20 minutes. You walk back up the stairs into the gray morning air and you feel something strange. Not quite pride, but something close to professional satisfaction. You did the job, the man confessed. Justice will be served. You go home and eat dinner. Your wife asks how the work went. You say it went fine. You don't describe what fine means. She doesn't ask you to. Over the following months, you learn things that the procedure doesn't teach you. You learn that people have different thresholds. You learn that some people will confess to anything at all, to make it stop, whether it's true or not, and that the scribe records whatever they say as if it were gospel. You learn to read which confessions are real and which are performances of desperation. You learn that the magistrate is not always interested in this distinction. You learn to read the magistrate. There is one in particular, a man named Gerhardt, thin, meticulous, with ink-stained fingers and a habit of arriving at the examination room door already knowing the answer he wants. You notice that when Gerhardt is the signing magistrate, the examinations are longer. The subjects confess to more. They confess to things you suspect they did not do because Gerhardt needs them to have done those things because Gerhardt has already decided. The first time you realize this clearly, you are midway through an examination with a woman accused of witchcraft. She is perhaps 50, a village herbalist, the kind of woman who has delivered half the babies in her district and cured more fevers than the physician has. She has been in the room with you for 2 hours. She has confessed to nothing. Gerhardt leans close and tells you to proceed to the next stage. You look at her. She looks at you. There is something in her eyes that is not quite pleading. It is past pleading. It is the flat, exhausted recognition of someone who has understood exactly where they are and exactly what is going to happen. You proceed. She confesses. She names 4 other women in her village. The scribe writes it down. 2 weeks later, all 4 of those women are also in your room, naming more names, and by the time Gerhardt is satisfied, 11 people from that district have confessed to attending a Sabbath that almost certainly never happened. You knew it hadn't happened. Not with certainty, but with the kind of knowing you don't say out loud. You knew it the same way you know when a confession is real versus performed. You knew, and you proceeded, because Gerhardt had the document with his signature and the church had sanctioned the process. And what were you going to do? Refuse. On what grounds? Your personal suspicion. Your gut feeling. You are not a judge. You are not a theologian. You are the man who operates the instruments. That is your function. You execute the function. This is what you tell yourself. And it's not entirely wrong. It's just not entirely enough. By the time you are 30, you have been in the room with perhaps 200 people. The number surprises you when you add it up. You remember some of them clearly. The ones who were calm, the ones who were brave in ways you did not expect. You remember one man, a wool merchant accused of counterfeiting, who asked you your name before the examination began. You told him. He said he would remember it. He didn't survive the examination, not because of what you did, but because he had a weak heart and the physician missed it. The magistrate noted it in the record as death by natural causes during examination. That is the official version. You went home that night and you sat in the garden behind your stone floor house and you looked at the sky for a long time. You did not pray. You thought about praying, and then you thought about what you would say, and nothing seemed right, so you just sat there until the cold drove you inside. Your daughter was born that year. You held her in the delivery room while the midwife worked, and she was impossibly small, and you thought about the wool merchant, and then you stopped thinking about the wool merchant because that way was madness, and you had a daughter now and a wife and a house, and you had made choices that could not be unmade, so you held your daughter instead and you let the feeling go. This is the skill that nobody teaches you formally, but that everyone in the office develops. The letting go. The moment when you stop carrying what you see in the room back up the stairs with you. It takes different people different amounts of time. Some never manage it. They drink themselves to ruin, or they find God with sudden desperate sincerity, or they simply go quiet in a way that means something is gone. The ones who survive, in the ordinary sense, who continue to function, who continue to eat and sleep and speak to their families, learn to leave it below. You leave it below. You are 34 when a young man is brought to you. 19 years old, a student at the cathedral school, accused of heresy, specifically of circulating a manuscript that questions the temporal authority of the bishop. You have heard the name of the bishop in question. He is the kind of man who uses the ecclesiastical courts for personal grievances, and everyone in the magistrate's office knows it, and no one says so in writing. The student's name is Thomas. He is thin, academic, with the kind of pale skin that comes from spending most of your life in libraries. He is not afraid of you the way most people are afraid. He is afraid in a different way. The way someone is afraid when they understand the mechanism they are caught in and have no illusions about how it ends. He looks at the instruments with an expression of nauseated clarity. He tells you he will not recant, that the manuscript said what he believed and he still believes it, that he would rather God judge him than the bishop. You tell him this is not about God. This is about the document Gerhard signed. He is in the room with you for 9 hours. He recants. He names no one else because there is no one else. The manuscript was his alone. But Gerhard keeps asking and he keeps saying the same thing, and eventually the physician says to stop and you stop. Thomas walks out of the room. That surprises you. You expected him to be carried out. He walks slowly, bent forward, holding his arms against his chest, but he walks. He looks back at you once from the doorway, and his expression is something you will have to work harder than usual to leave below the stairs. He is executed by hanging 3 weeks later for heresy. The manuscript is burned. The bishop attends the burning. You do not attend. You were not required to. Execution is technically a separate office, though in many cities the same man holds both positions. In your city, the execution is performed by your assistant, a younger man you trained yourself, who is better than you were at your age at leaving things below the stairs. You wonder sometimes what that means about him, and then you leave it below. By 40, you are the senior examiner in the city. You train new men. You teach them the procedure, the documents, the gradients, the scribe, the physician. You teach them to read confessions. You teach them to read the magistrates. You teach them the distinction between what the law says and what the men who enforce the law want, and the importance of staying on the right side of that distinction without ever saying so out loud. You are good at the job. You have never lost a subject unnecessarily. You have never exceeded the sanctioned limits without a signed document. You have kept accurate records. You have, by the standards of your profession and your century, conducted yourself with something approaching professionalism. You tell yourself this on the nights when the room comes up the stairs with you despite everything. You tell yourself, I did not invent this. I did not design this. I operate within a system built by people with more power than I have ever had, and I have done so by the law, and if I had not been here, someone else would have, and that someone else might have been worse. This is true. All of it. Every word of that is factually, verifiably true. It is also the oldest sentence in the world. It has been said in every language that has ever had a word for obedience. It will be said again in languages not yet invented, in offices not yet built, by people holding instruments you have not imagined and would not recognize. You are 51 when you retire. The city grants you a small pension. Your daughter is married. Your grandchildren are loud and alive. Your wife's hair has gone silver in a way you find beautiful. You sit in the garden on warm evenings and you do not think about the room. You have become very good at not thinking about the room. Somewhere below the castle, there is a younger man. He has your training. He has your documents. He has the magistrate's signature and the church's sanction and the law's authority and the city's salary and a stone floor house with a garden behind it. He is not a monster either. He hesitated for 3 days before he took the job. That's how it works. That's how it has always worked. Not with monsters, with men who hesitated and then decided and then learned to leave it below the stairs. The system does not need cruelty. It needs people who will follow the procedure. It needs people who will look at the document with the right signature and decide that the document is enough. It has never had trouble finding them. It is not having trouble now.